Have you ever been in a meeting? You share what you think is a pretty great idea, and you're met with just crickets, complete silence. But then, 10 minutes later, someone else says basically the exact same thing, and suddenly everyone's nodding along. It's so frustrating, and I promise you, it's not just in your head. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on this invisible currency that dictates who gets heard and why. It's called legitimacy.
I saw this happen so clearly one time. A junior colleague made a fantastic, super relevant point. The conversation just moved on, like it didn't even happen. A few minutes go by, and a senior leader basically rephrases the exact same idea, and boom, suddenly it's a brilliant insight. People are writing it down. And that's when it really clicked for me. Nothing about the idea changed. Only the voice did.
All right, so here's our game plan for this explainer. We're going to start with that feeling of having an unheard voice, and then really dig into what the real problem is. Then I'll introduce you to a new way of thinking, the 3 legitimacy currencies. We'll also look at a tricky situation called the manager's paradox, talk about how identity plays a huge role, and then wrap up with how you can start building your voice intentionally. Let's get into it.
This all leads to that one big question we ask ourselves in those moments of frustration, right? Why do some people walk into a room and their voice just carries weight instantly, while the rest of us feel like we have to fight tooth and nail just to be heard? It really does feel like there's some secret rulebook that nobody ever gave us.
Now, what's the typical advice you hear? Oh, just be more confident, or you got to speak up more. But what if that's not the real issue at all? What if we're all focusing on the completely wrong thing?
So, this is the crucial pivot in thinking. We tend to internalize this stuff, right? We think it's a personal failing, a me problem, a confidence problem, but the real dynamic that's going on is a legitimacy problem. It's not just about how brilliant your idea is, it's about whether the room has already given you permission to have a brilliant idea. So let's get a really clear definition on the table. Legitimacy isn't about being popular or charismatic or even about always being right. It's the social permission that people grant you to influence them. See, it's something that's given to you by the group. You can't demand it, and it's built slowly, over time, through things people can actually see.
To make this feel a bit more concrete, let's think of legitimacy like a currency system. Yep, like money. It's something you can earn, you can spend, and you can even lose. And once you understand how this system works, you get a whole new playbook for navigating your workplace. And inside this system, there are 3 main currencies you can start earning today. They are competence, consistency, and care. So let's break each one of these down. First up, we've got competence. Now, this isn't just about knowing the right answers or being the smartest person in the room. It's earned when people can actually see your thinking, not just your final PowerPoint slide. It's about showing that you have a solid process and that you're accurate.
So how do you earn this stuff? Well, you've got to make your invisible work visible. Show your thought process. Ask those sharp questions that prove you've done your homework. And this might sound weird, but one of the fastest ways to build competence is to admit what you don't know. It shows everyone that you care more about getting it right than just looking smart.
But look, competence alone is not enough. Not even close. The second currency is consistency. This, right here, is where real trust is built. It's about being predictable in a good way. People need to know that the you they get on Monday is the same you they'll get on Friday, no matter who's in the room. That creates a sense of safety.
Every single time you follow through on a commitment, even a tiny one, you're making a deposit in your consistency account. You're basically reducing chaos and uncertainty for the people around you. And in today's crazy workplaces, that kind of reliability is like gold.
And finally, we have care. And honestly, this is the most underestimated currency of them all, especially in those hardcore results-only environments. Care answers everyone's silent question about you. Are you here for the mission and for us, or are you just here for yourself?
People see care when you shield your team from nonsense, when you push back on a ridiculous deadline, or when you actually stop and think about the human impact of a business decision. And when people feel safe with you, when they know you care, they give you the one thing you can never force, their real, honest trust. And with that trust, your voice is suddenly heard.
This quote just perfectly captures what it looks like when someone's care currency is low. When you feel like you have to apologize for taking up space, for just contributing, it's a huge red flag that you don't feel legitimate in that room. You feel like you haven't earned the right to even speak.
Okay, so let's use this framework and apply it to a really specific and, frankly, really tough role, the middle manager.
they often get stuck in what you might call a legitimacy paradox. So here's the trap. They're on the hook for results, but they don't have the real authority to make it all happen. So when leadership suddenly changes direction, the manager has to be the messenger. And in doing that, they're forced to spend their own hard-earned consistency and care currencies. It is entirely possible to be a fantastic manager and still go bankrupt on legitimacy just because the system is set up that way. It's a structural problem, not a personal one. Now this brings us to a really critical and often very personal piece of the puzzle. Legitimacy is not handed out equally. For so many people, especially professionals working in a country that's not their own, their very identity can be a hurdle to being heard.
And the data backs this up. In one UK study, a staggering 89% of creative professionals said they felt judged based on their accent. See, legitimacy is often tied to familiarity. If you look or sound different from the people in power, you often start with an illegitimacy deficit through no fault of your own.
And this difference in perception just creates this invisible obstacle course. What signals I know my stuff in one culture might be read as, wow, that person is aggressive in another. Being humble might be seen as being weak. This forces people to do all this extra mental work just to fit in, and that is absolutely exhausting. It can make a voice smaller and smaller over time.
So, okay, we've unpacked a lot of complex stuff here. What's the way forward? Well, the key is to stop blaming yourself and to start thinking like a strategist. Start building your legitimacy currencies deliberately.
So let's boil it all down to a few key insights. Number 1, legitimacy is often decided before you even get a chance to prove yourself. 2, competence is great, but people trust consistency more. 3, care is your secret weapon. It's the fastest way to get people to really listen. And finally, always remember, organizations don't just reward the best ideas, they reward ideas that come from voices they've already decided are legitimate.
So I want to leave you with this final thought. Getting heard at work isn't about being the loudest person in the room. It's about building your legitimacy so that your voice has weight before you even finish your sentence. So take a second and ask yourself, which of these 3 currencies, competence, consistency, or care, do you need to invest in the most right now? Your answer might just be the key to finally unlocking your voice.